Ly Tu Diem here. Hello everyone. I gently wish you all good health and lasting peace, wherever you are in life. They say love shines brightest in the dark, and now we are standing in that darkness. CEO Toan's company has gone bankrupt. Everything he built collapsed in silence. And now, people whisper, word Ly to Diem Toan weiterhin lieben. Will I still love him? But love was never about success or titles. It was about the way he held my hand when I was lost, and now, when he has nothing left to offer but his heart. Maybe that's when love matters most.
The sky over the city was heavy, painted in hues of gray, as if mourning something the world hadn't spoken of yet. In the heart of the restless city sat a man once called unstoppable, a man whose name carried power, wealth, and admiration. But today, all that remained was silence. Toan, the CEO once praised for his brilliance, had lost everything. The company he had poured his blood, youth, and soul into, gone. A failed merger, betrayal from his trusted partner, and a spiraling economy had crushed it all in a matter of weeks. His office was now empty. His phone no longer rang with opportunity, and the headlines were ruthless. Yet what hurt more than the collapse of his empire was the fear that now she might walk away, Ly Tu Diem. The woman who had once found him broken by a riverbank, who nursed him back to life with nothing but raw compassion and quiet strength. The one whose past was filled with scars, yet whose eyes still carried hope. Could she still love him when he had nothing left to offer? When he told her the truth, that he had lost the company, that his accounts were frozen, and even the house might not be his for long. He could barely meet her eyes. But she didn't flinch. She reached out, gently placed her hand over his, and whispered, "I never fell in love with your power, Toan. I fell in love with your soul." He looked at her, confused, vulnerable, stripped of everything except the truth. And in her gaze, he saw something deeper than love. He saw faith. "Let the world turn its back on you," she continued softly. "I won't." That night, they sat together on the balcony of a house that might be gone tomorrow, drinking tea under a roof that might not hold forever. And yet, it was the warmest night of Toan's life, because in losing everything, he found the one thing that could never be taken. A love that didn't care about titles, riches, or reputation. A love that chose him, not what he had. And as the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, he knew this was not the end. This was the beginning of a new life, built not on fortune, but on something far more lasting. The following weeks were some of the hardest Toan had ever faced. No more boardrooms, no more chauffeurs waiting outside, just long walks under the sun, job interviews that led to silence, and cold dinners in a modest apartment he now rented on the edge of the city. But every evening when he came home, tired and defeated, Ly Tu Diem was there, sometimes waiting with warm soup and soft music, sometimes waiting with nothing but a smile and arms wide open, and those were the moments that healed him most. She found a job at a small flower shop, arranging wild roses and daisies with gentle hands. Her fingers were rough now, her shoes worn, but her spirit unshaken. She never complained, never asked for more. One night, as they shared a quiet meal, Toan looked across the table and said, "Why are you still here?" She paused, then chuckled softly. "Because you're still here. That's enough for me." He lowered his eyes, guilt creeping into his chest like a slow tide. "I feel like I've failed you." She stood, walked to his side, and placed her hand over his heart. "You only fail me if you stop being you." That night, Toan couldn't sleep. His mind turned with memories of his past, the ambition, the deals, the mistakes. But something was different now. He no longer longed for the empire he lost. He longed to rebuild, not to regain status, but to build something honest, something real, a life worthy of the love he had been given. The next morning, he got up before the sun. With borrowed tools and quiet determination, he began fixing things in the neighborhood. A broken fence here, a leaking pipe there. At first, people looked at him strangely, but over time, they began to smile, to thank him, to trust him again, this time, not as a CEO, but as a man of heart. And with Ly Tu Diem beside him, wiping his brow and handing him cold water, he knew he hadn't lost everything. In fact, he might be closer than ever to truly having everything. Months passed. Toan's hands, once soft from years behind a desk, now bore calluses from labor. He no longer wore expensive suits, but simple shirts stained with effort. And though his wallet remained light, his heart had never felt heavier with purpose. He started a small repair service, helping elderly neighbors fix their homes for little or no pay. Word of his kindness spread like wildflowers in spring. People began offering him odd jobs. And soon, with Ly Tu Diem's encouragement, he opened a humble workshop, a small garage with a wooden sign that read, "Fix with care." Ly Tu Diem painted the sign herself. She worked mornings at the flower shop and spent evenings helping Toan organize tools, track bills, and clean the space. They would laugh under dim lights, surrounded by old fans and broken furniture waiting for second chances, much like themselves. One evening, while they closed the workshop together, a car pulled up. It was a familiar face, Mr. Hat, one of Toan's old business rivals. Now head of a booming logistics company, he stepped out and looked around the modest space, then turned to Toan with a curious smile. "I've been hearing about this place," he said, "and about a man who fixes more than just broken things." Toan raised an eyebrow. "I don't do partnerships anymore." "I'm not here for that," Mr. Hat replied. "I'm here to ask if you'll lead a new community initiative, one that brings young workers back to craft, honesty, and dignity, paid, of course." Toan didn't answer right away. He glanced at Ly Tu Diem, who gave him the smallest nod. He smiled. "All right, but we do it my way, with heart." That night, they walked home hand in hand under the stars. Toan stopped mid-step and turned to her. "You saved me," he said softly. She looked up, eyes shimmering. "No, love saved us both." They embraced, surrounded by the quiet hum of a city that once judged him, now watching a man reborn, not through fortune, but through love, resilience, and a woman who never walked away when the world did. Spring arrived gently. The small workshop, once a quiet corner tucked behind rows of aging buildings, had become a beacon of hope. Young people came from nearby towns, eager to learn how to work with their hands, to rebuild not just broken chairs and radios but broken confidence. Toan stood before a small group of apprentices one morning, explaining how a simple cracked wooden table could be made beautiful again. His words were calm, but full of meaning, just like the man he had become. Ly Tu Diem watched from the doorway, holding a tray of tea. Her eyes shone with quiet pride. The man beside her no longer had millions in his bank account, but he had something greater: integrity, purpose, and the courage to begin again. One day, as the sun began to set behind the workshop, Toan asked her to walk with him to the old riverside path they once wandered. They walked in silence, the gentle sound of their footsteps and the river breeze weaving memories into the air. "I used to think love was a reward," Toan finally said, "something you earned when everything in life was perfect." Ly Tu Diem smiled gently. "But now I know love is a choice," he whispered. "A decision to stay, to believe, even when everything falls apart." She turned to him, eyes brimming with warmth. And then, Toan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a simple silver ring, no diamonds. No luxury, just a quiet promise. "Ly Tu Diem, will you marry me?" She didn't cry, she simply nodded, and with a voice steadier than the sky above them, said, "I already did in my heart. The day you lost everything, but still chose kindness." They embraced as twilight fell, the river whispering blessings, the stars blinking awake above them. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. In a world where success is often measured by money, power, and reputation, it is easy to forget the true essence of life: love, integrity, and resilience. The story of Toan and Ly Tu Diem reminds us that while fortunes may fade and careers may crumble, the values we carry and the people who stand beside us define who we truly are. Toan, once a powerful CEO, lost everything: his company, his status, and his confidence. But in that moment of darkness, he discovered something far more meaningful. He learned that failure is not the end, but a chance to begin again with humility. And he realized that true love is not conditional. It doesn't vanish when the money is gone or when the world turns cold. Instead, it becomes even more powerful when tested by hardship. Ly Tu Diem chose to stay not because Toan was wealthy, but because he was kind, sincere, and willing to rebuild from nothing. Her quiet strength showed us that love is not about comfort, it is about courage. Her support reminded us that being loved for who we are, not what we have, is one of life's most beautiful gifts. This story teaches us that life may shake us, but it is in those moments of loss and uncertainty that our true character is revealed. And when we stand tall with grace, work hard with honesty, and love deeply without conditions, we become unbreakable, not because we never fell, but because we always got back up.